Chapter 3. Sasuke cut across the courtyard under the orange-red light of the setting sun and headed for the library that sat neatly in front of the main building. The only time prisoners were allowed to use the library was before and after supper, and only briefly. When he opened the rusted brass door, he found rows of shoulder-height bookcases. The building housed many parchment texts that were fragile and quick to discolor, and the facility was constructed of sandstone and laterite, which was even more drafty than the prisoner residence. In other words, it was cold and gloomy. The sole light source was a line of small windows which served more for the purpose of ventilation than lighting, and the sunlight that came through these tiny squares fell to the floor at regular intervals. He had assumed the place would be deserted, but he saw prisoners sitting on the floor scattered here and there, flipping through the pages of books. A large majority of them couldn't read, but they enjoyed looking at the pictures. Just as they discussed when they met earlier, Sakura was in front of a bookshelf on the south side of the room. Even when Sasuke approached, she kept her eyes firmly focused on the stacks, pretending to be searching for a book. After Sasuke had wandered through the stacks for an appropriate amount of time, he came to stand on the opposite side of the shelf Sakura was browsing. There was no one else around. "The librarian is my cellmate," he said, hiding his mouth with the cover of a book. There was a brief silence, and then a response came from the other side of the shelves before him. "The one with his head on the table, napping? Tall, skinny, short hair. He likes to gamble. If you offer to play him, he'll definitely accept. I'll talk to him first. You come along after and make your move." "Roger." Sakura closed the book in her hands with a loud clap. Taking this as a signal, Sasuke approached the man napping with a book over his face and slapped his shoulder. "Penzilla." "Oh. You scared me." Penzilla jumped up and opened his eyes. "Sasuke? Weird to see you here." "I could say the same," Sasuke told him. "I never dreamed you'd take the librarian job. It's so much work." "I asked for the job. Gotta show how I'm a model prisoner, set my sights on getting out on parole. Unlike you lot, my term's a short one. If you're a model prisoner, then maybe treat the books with a little more respect," Sasuke suggested. The book under Penzilla's face was no doubt valuable, but its open pages were now dotted with saliva. "Oh, crap." He rubbed at the spots with the edge of his sleeve, and the page ripped. I tore Kubinaga's face." "Kubinaga? The big guy here?" Penzilla pointed at a picture of a creature with a long neck. The caption next to the picture read Titan. Between Penzilla's spit and the image of a now torn face, it was hard to tell for sure, but it looked enormous relative to the trees in the background. "There's loads of dragons in this book. Even if you can't read the words, it's pretty interesting just to look at." Sasuke quickly perused the descriptive text. Titan, a large dragon with a long neck and tail. Total body length of nearly 100 feet. Fossils of the creature have been discovered in the area around the Tatar Observatory. Sasuke didn't know too much about it himself, but among scholars, there was consensus that enormous creatures known as dragons had existed in this region at some point in the past. He was pretty sure they were called dinosaurs in some areas. Before the Earth's crust bulged up and created the mountains, this region had been flat wetlands, and a great number of dragons had roamed here. "You read dragon books too?" Penzilla asked. "You want me to give you my favorites?" "No." Sasuke shook his head. "I'm actually looking for a book called Map of the Heavens." "Map of the Heavens?" Penzilla stared back at him blankly. "Never heard of that one. If I checked the catalog of books, I could find out. But I'll have to find a guy who can read first." "I can read." "Seriously?" "Sasuke, you're something else." Sincerely impressed, Penzilla pulled the library catalog out from beneath the counter. The pile of pages, corners all turned up, was as thick as an encyclopedia, and the silk cords that bound it were worn and on the verge of snapping. Sasuke opened it carefully to find handwritten characters scrawled like snakes. There was no order at all to the list, just a random collection of titles, but he quickly found the title he was looking for. Map of the Heavens was listed on the very first page as a critical text. Basement stack. I-24. He read out the location of the book, and Penzilla slumped his shoulders apologetically. "Ah, the basement stacks," he said. "You're out of luck then. Downstairs is where they keep all the super important books. The books down there are worth 100,000 times what we are. We're totally not allowed to touch them. You even go down those stairs, and you're looking at one thing and one thing only: the ultimate punishment. No ifs, ands, or buts. The ultimate punishment, in other words, death by hanging." "Oh, that's too bad." Sasuke frowned. "Now you've got me curious," Sakura said from behind, acting like she just happened to be walking by. "Oh, the doctor from the infirmary," Penzilla said. "I might be a bit interested in this Map of the Heavens book," she remarked. "I mean, I did come all the way out to an astronomical observatory. I was hoping to get a chance to study the stars a little. If you want to read about stars, we got plenty of other books," Penzilla told her. "Unfortunately, this Map of the Heavens is off limits." "Okay." Sakura grinned. "I'll read it in secret in the middle of the night. Lend me the key." Penzilla looked stunned. "I mean, a banned book? Now I have to read it. It's sort of thrilling. You know? Maybe it's about how a meteor's going to come crashing to Earth one of these days or something." Penzilla waved a hand back and forth. "You might be the doctor, but I can't give you the key. I'd end up paying too. Then how about we play for it?" Sakura said innocently. Penzilla's face changed slightly when he heard the word play. "CeeLo, cards, whatever your game is," she continued. "If I win, you give me the key to the basement." "Hold on." Penzilla frowned. "If anyone finds out you walked off with the key, The guards almost never come here, right? I'll sneak in and read it at night, and then I'll give you the key back as soon as I'm done. Please." Sakura begged and clapped her hands together pleadingly. "Oh." Penzilla looked troubled and walked nervously in circles. "I don't know." But eventually he stopped and announced calmly, "Fine. We'll play. For it." "Yes." "What'll we play?" "Not CeeLo. Sasuke just beat the pants off of me. I've got no luck there." Penzilla shook his head. "We'll play Star Lines." "Star Lines?" Sakura and Sasuke both raised eyebrows in surprise at the same time. They'd never heard of the game. "It's a game we play here. I'll go get it." While Penzilla slipped toward a bookcase further back, Sasuke said to Sakura, "You only have to pretend you're playing him. As soon as the game starts, I'll cast Jinjutsu on him." "You can't do that," she said. "That's cheating." Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Sasuke Retsuden, the Uchiha Descendants, and the Heavenly Stardust. He stared at her, dumbfounded. Is this really the time for that? I'll be fine. I wasn't Lady Tsunade's top apprentice for nothing. Isn't Tsunade so bad at gambling it practically killed her, though? Sakura was full of confidence, unmoved by Sasuke's concern. She took off her white doctor's coat, pushed it on Sasuke, rolled up her sleeves, and said, "Oh yay." He wasn't sure about this, but she seemed ready to tackle the world. While Sasuke wondered how he could convince her to do it his way, Penzilla returned with a magnificent box inlaid with gold. He removed the lid to reveal picture cards that were slightly smaller than playing cards. In contrast with the size of the box, the cards were very small. "Okay, this is Star Lines. Basically, there's 12 kinds of cards and you use them to make different kinds of hands. Penzilla sat down cross-legged in front of the box and began laying out the cards. Some guys found it a few months ago when they were cleaning up the shelves, complete with a list of rules. There were 12 different pictures on each of the 12 types of cards. A white horse swimming in the ocean, a cat staring at a lantern flame, an orange watchfire in an iron basket, a monkey drawing on the ground with a tree branch, a shepherd looking up at the night sky through a glass bead, a cow peering into a pot, a tree trunk with sap oozing down the side, a giant being born from the earth, a turtle climbing a rocky mountain, an elderly person with white hair and a cane, a tanuki parent and child playing on a dune, and a frog and a slug crawling across a bog. The motifs were all over the place: human, animal, plant, painted in vivid color with what appeared to be natural mineral pigments. The picture on the back of the cards was the same, a lizard coiled around a rock. The lizard was reminiscent of minnow. Was there some kind of connection there? There are 12 kinds of picture cards. 5 of each, so 60 cards in total. We each get dealt 6. And then we toss cards and take new ones like poker to form a hand. This is the list of hands. The ink's faded there, and the parts you can't read, well, just ignore them. He held out a scrap of paper with a list of combinations that comprised the various hands. The strongest hand, star, was white horse, shepherd, cat, watchfire, giant, and turtle, apparently. There were traces of something written on the line beneath it, but the ink was smudged, and it was no longer legible. Second to star was the hand earth, made up of cat, watchfire, tanuki, frog and slug, turtle, and old person. There were a number of other hands, such as twilight, flame, clear sky, and new leaf, in addition to star and earth, but unlike poker, there appeared to be no regularity to the combinations for the different hands. It would take a beginner player quite a bit of time to remember all the different hands. However, oh, I get it. Okay. Shall we play? Sakura said and handed the paper back to Penzilla. He frowned. Weren't you listening, Doc? I told you, this game's all about getting the right hand. A newbie needs to have this paper out where they can see it and check the hands. Otherwise, I memorized them. Huh? Sakura sat on her knees in front of Penzilla, tucked her cherry pink hair behind her ear, and straightened her back. Her cat-like almond eyes narrowed, and she stared at Penzilla like she was issuing him a challenge. Let's play. This isn't what the docs usually like, huh? Penzilla chuckled to himself when he saw the expression on Sakura's face change. He'd seen moods and personalities shift abruptly many times when people sat down to gamble. Speaking from experience, that sort of person wasn't particularly suited to games of chance. The ironclad rule when it came to gambling was not to wear your emotions on your face. I'm sitting in the low seat, so it's my job to deal the cards, right? Sakura said as she picked up the deck. From the second round on, the loser deals. But I guess this is just a one-shot, so that doesn't matter. Penzilla carefully watched Sakura cut the cards with the precision he'd expect of a doctor. Dr. Sakura was basically the only person who treated the prisoners with humanity. She only just arrived at the observatory, but she was already revered by many of the prisoners. She attempted to hospitalize guys who'd been beaten by their cellmates and sent a request for indoor work for a guy with arthritis who couldn't hold a hoe anymore. So far, these requests had been roundly rejected by the director, but Sakura's mere effort to provide the prisoners with care was more aid than they had gotten before she arrived at the observatory. At the moment, however, the expression of the woman before him was different from the doctor he knew. Penzilla picked up the cards Sakura slid across the floor to him one at a time and took a look. Not a bad group. Among the 6 cards, he had an old person, a cat, and a turtle. If he could pick up a watchfire, a tanuki, and a frog and slug in the next 5 turns, he'd have the second strongest hand, Earth. When he glanced up, Sakura was smiling slightly as she checked her cards. I'm sure a lot of people who like to gamble are pretty smart. The same as with doctors, I guess. Penzilla discarded the 3 cards that were not old person, cat, or turtle and drew 3 new ones from the deck. A second turtle, a cow, and a watchfire. Looking good. In addition to picking up a pair of turtles, he was also closer to an earth. Next was Sakura's turn. She tossed 1 card and took 1 from the pile. And then, after a moment of hesitation, she discarded another one and drew a new one. Second turn, third turn. Before he knew it, the prisoners in the library had started to gather around them. They leaned forward and watched the 2 play with great interest. And then it was the final turn. Penzilla hesitated. Right now, he held 2 turtles, an old person, a cat, a watchfire, and a frog and slug. If he discarded a turtle and drew a tanuki, he'd have earth. But that option also meant ruining the only thing he currently had in his hand, the pair of turtles. If he drew a card that wasn't in his hand, he would have absolutely nothing all at once. Now what to do? Penzilla glared at his cards. His opponent was a beginner. She'd only just learned the rules. It was unlikely that she'd memorized the combinations for complicated hands like star or earth, equally unlikely that she was trying to pick up one of those hands. She'd probably come at him with a simple combination, like a pair or 3 of a kind. In which case, maybe he should try discarding everything except his turtles. If he drew another turtle, that'd be 3 of a kind. Even if he didn't get a turtle, if he could draw 2 of the same card, that'd be 2 pairs. No reason to overreach and try for earth. The right choice was to play defensively. Having made this decision, he was about to throw away 4 cards when he suddenly met Sakura's eyes. Think it over as long as you want, she said gently, tilting her head to one side. He felt like she was taking him for a fool. He snapped. Change of strategy. I'm not getting some wishy-washy win with 3 of a kind or 2 pairs. I'm getting earth, and I will make her weep. He discarded half of his hard-won turtle pair and drew a card from the deck. If it was a tanuki, he'd have his earth hand. But if it was any other card he didn't have already, he'd end up with nothing. When he saw the picture on the card he'd drawn, Penzilla nearly leaped up into the air. Yes. Depicted in smudged ink was a tanuki parent and child playing on a dune. He'd gotten the second strongest hand, earth. I don't need to discard. It seemed that Sakura had also completed her hand. And thus, all 5 rounds were over. Time for the showdown. The moment of decision when they laid their hands out to show each other. Hey, Doc, don't cry, okay, he said, in high spirits, and neatly spread out his cards. The gallery of onlookers crowded around them looked at the pictures on each of the 6 cards. The man who first realized Penzilla had gotten earth whistled. Earth, right out of the gate, he said, impressed. Is that a good hand? Sasuke asked, and the man bobbed his head up and down. Second strongest hand there is. The only way you can beat that is to get star, the strongest hand. But some of the cards in star, you also need for earth. Now that Penzilla's gotten earth, it's unlikely that the doctor has a star hand. Meaning Sakura had lost? Sasuke stared at his wife, who kept her poker face right up to the end. Her fingers turned a card, tanuki. Sasuke heard several sighs from the gallery. There was no tanuki in a star hand. Sakura had lost the game. Which wasn't really a surprise. The game was about chance, after all. Sasuke decided he would use Jinjutsu on everyone in the place and pilfer the book while they were under. A red light started to bleed into his eyes. Sakura grinned, and her pale fingers flipped over the remaining 5 cards, turtle, old person, cat, watchfire, and frog and slug. This combination was earth, someone in the gallery cried with a gasp. The 2 rows of cards on the floor were identical. Sakura had the same earth hand as Penzilla. In other words, the game was a draw. But earth hardly ever came up. Was it even possible for both players to get the hand in the same round? It's a trick, Penzilla muttered. Oh my. Well then, did you want to pat me down or something? Sakura spread her arms out and held her wrists forward, with a softness that made it hard to figure out what she was up to. Her cherry pink hair spilled forward, brushing her cheeks, and she stared at Penzilla challengingly with her blue-green eyes. Penzilla fell silent, at a loss for words. When it came to cheating, turn a blind eye unless you catch the cheater in the act. That was the rule in this place. Half an hour since they had started playing. Penzilla's back was damp with sweat. Behind the 6 cards fan in his hands, eyes lined with cherry pink lashes stared back at him. When it looked like he might actually meet those eyes, he automatically lowered his gaze, and the sweat on his forehead dripped down onto his cards. The results so far: 5 games, 0 wins, 0 losses. A draw every single time. Sakura had gone second in each round and had gotten the exact same hand as he had 5 times in a row. It was impossible. She had to have been cheating. There was no other explanation for it. He stared, hyper-focused, each time she touched the cards, but he caught sight of absolutely nothing suspicious. And if she was manipulating the cards somehow, why would she not just go ahead and take the win? Why would she bring it to a draw every time? Okay, showdown. You first, Sakura said, her voice clear and crisp. Please, let this time finally decide it. Praying, Penzilla spread his cards out. Old person, shepherd, tanuki, tanuki, turtle, turtle. A combination of 2 pairs of animals was called a tier. This was slightly better than 2 pairs, but he no longer cared about the strength of his hand. If it meant it would settle this contest, he'd be happy with anything. Another draw. What coincidence, HM? Sakura smiled knowingly and spread her cards out before her. The strength abruptly drained from Penzilla's body. Old person, shepherd, tanuki, tanuki, turtle, turtle. The 6 cards she laid out were exactly the same combination as Penzilla's. It was like looking in a mirror. Again. A draw. Penzilla sighed. This is such an incredible coincidence. We're totally on the same wavelength, That made 6 draws. Sakura tapped the deck of cards against the floor to square them up. You want to go again? She asked as she shuffled, a slight smile on her face. No. I lose, Penzilla declared abruptly and stood up. I can keep playing, but it's just going to be the same every time. I can't beat this woman. And I can't lose to her. All I can do is have the life drained out of me, bit by bit, like a dog strangled slowly with a silk cord. Hang on, he said, slipped behind the bookcases, grabbed a brass key, and popped back out. Here. The master key to the basement stacks. Bring it right back when you're done. If they find out it's gone, all the library clerks will get the ultimate punishment. I'll definitely bring it back. Thanks. Sakura went to take the key, but Penzilla yanked it up out of her reach. I'll just say this, he added. Even if the title's in the catalog, that doesn't necessarily mean that this heavens or whatever it is actually down there. What do you mean? Sakura frowned. Isn't that catalog a collection of all the books in the library? It is, but that still doesn't mean we actually have it, he told her. You probably know this library was stored at the palace while they were fixing up the observatory. And a fair number of books went missing from it while it was there. Why didn't you say that from the start? Sasuke glared at him. Penzilla shrugged, perhaps misinterpreting the reason for Sasuke's cold eyes on him. Pretty awful, huh? That lot at the palace, I guess they didn't know how valuable the books were. And a dozen or so years ago, some envoy or something from somewhere made off with some pretty specific books. Story is, they never returned a single one of them. Specific books? Which ones? Sakura asked. You know that Sage of 6 Paths from the old stories? Penzilla replied. Books of forbidden jutsu from back when he was still walking around. Should have been treasures that never left the gates, but the old king was a friendly guy, so he just let them borrow whatever they wanted. The envoy had a weird name too. I'm pretty sure it was something like Orochimaru. Upon the unexpected mention of Orochimaru's name, Sasuke and Sakura exchanged a look. Of course, it could be someone who also had this name, but they were pretty certain this was the Orochimaru. That snake man always turned up where he was least expected, so it wouldn't have been at all strange if he had known about this country so distant from the land of fire. But if that were the case, then what on earth drove him to come all the way to far-off Ridaku? That night, Sasuke waited for Gigi and the others to fall asleep before sneaking out of his cell and going out into the courtyard. He met up with Sakura in front of the library. "You brought the key?" he asked, and Sakura held the bit of dull metal up next to her face. Of course. They were going into the basement to retrieve Map of the Heavens. He hoped it wouldn't be too difficult to find. They pushed open the tarnished brass door and went inside. When Sasuke closed the door behind them, darkness blanketed the room. There were no lamps in the library. Both shinobi called up fire-style flames in their palms and relied on this light to move further in. "Hey, is Gigi actually sleeping at night?" Sakura asked abruptly. "He was sound asleep when I left the cell," Sasuke told her. "Why do you ask?" "Lately, he's been coming to the infirmary a lot. His head hurts, his stomach hurts, all kinds of excuses. When I examine him, I can't find anything wrong. I think he just wants an excuse to skip out of work, but I'm still a bit worried. Probably just faking. He's the picture of health." Sasuke felt something flutter in his stomach. Gigi might have been Gigi, but still, there was no way he would touch Sakura, not knowing that she was Sasuke's wife. He wouldn't. At least that's what Sasuke wanted to believe. "You wouldn't hate it if some bad apple like me came along while you were gone?" Gigi's words came back to life in his ears, sounding ominous, and Sasuke froze in place. "HM? What's wrong?" Sakura stopped and looked at him, mystified. He looked at her without a word and grabbed her hand. He touched the base of her ring finger and worked his chakra there. The chakra transformed into sand and slid around Sakura's finger like a ring of Saturn. Tink! In the blink of an eye, the ring turned from sand to silver. "Wear this," Sasuke said grumpily as he released her hand. "This." She spread her fingers out in front of her and stared, baffled by the ring that had suddenly appeared on her finger. The silver circle sparkled in the faint light, a large red gem set in the center of it. A ruby. Both silver and ruby had been generated by increasing the purity of substances in Earth style to almost the maximum. Sasuke had used ninjutsu to create an impromptu ring. "A ring on the fourth finger of the left hand, that means you're married." "Thanks," Sakura said shyly. Sasuke appeared not to hear her. He self-consciously turned his back on her and began to walk. Trailing after him, Sakura pressed the palms of her hands to her now hot cheeks. The ring was a little crooked, but even so, it was beautiful, shining more clearly than a star or flowing water. The purity and clarity of the ruby, likely far superior to those of any naturally produced gem, was a gift of Sasuke's impressive chakra control. Is he maybe jealous? She knew he would only become more taciturn if she asked him, so she decided to lock it away in her heart. She narrowed her eyes in an embarrassed smile as she stared at the red stone decorating her ring finger. After proceeding in silence in the darkness, they came to the door at the far side of the library. When Sakura pushed the key into the hole below the handle, the spring inside lifted with a click and the lock opened. "How did you win?" Sasuke asked awkwardly as he pushed the door inward. "Oh, that. Well." Caught staring at the ring on her finger, Sakura hurriedly lowered her hand, and her mouth stretched out in a grin. "I didn't cheat. I just worked super hard." "Worked hard? How?" "Memorizing." On the other side of the door were stairs leading down to the basement. As they descended the brick stairs one by one, Sakura continued. Those cards were all super old, right? Some were dirty or bent, but each card was slightly different. So while I pretended to check the pictures, I memorized them all. All 60 cards? Sasuke stared at her. Yeah. She nodded. But in the beginning, I was a bit sketchy on a few of them, so I was really nervous in the first round. It's a trick I learned when I was training with my master. Her voice softened. Even though she's honestly terrible at gambling, Lady Tsunade hated to lose. So, at first, I was careful and deliberately let her win. But then she'd get all excited and would keep me there playing with her for days. But she'd get bored after a series of draws. Her face would get all pale, and she'd say, "Let's just stop already." She was probably freaked out, not bored. While Sasuke wondered whether or not he should say this out loud, they reached the bottom of the stairs. The cobweb-covered stacks were stuffed artlessly with large and small scrolls, bound books, and documents in a variety of sizes. For all the supposed importance of these books, preserved and kept off limits. For viewing, they weren't actually all that well cared for. Sakura touched a wall and sent her chakra crawling into it to see if there were any traps set up in the basement space. By following the movement of her spreading chakra, she could get a rough idea of the layout of the entire building. "Huh," she said suddenly. "What is it?" Sasuke asked. "It looks like there's another room on the other side of that wall." She turned her gaze to the wall further back, in the direction of the main building. She closed her eyes and concentrated harder on the flow of her chakra. It was because she had such excellent chakra control that she could use this technique to search the structure of a building using chakra inorganically. "It's a spiral staircase," she said. "It connects with the director's office on the 4th floor. There aren't any stairs leading down from the 1st floor in the main building." Sasuke frowned. "So this means there's a hidden underground room and it's separated from the library basement by a single wall? A basement room that could only be reached via the director's office. Basically, a secret room. Suspicious. Seems like it'd be hiding something important. We'll check it out later. It'd be great if this hidden room was connected with the ultra particles." Sakura was curious about this mystery room, but finding Map of the Heavens took priority. She took her hand off the wall, wandered the low stacks, and searched for the shelf listed in the catalog. "I found it. Here. Map of the Heavens." She pulled a book about as wide as her shoulders from the shelf. The plain cover was a deep blue, like the slowly darkening evening sky. The fact that it was a bit rough to the touch likely meant that pigments made from crushed minerals had been used on it. The spine was decorated with the words "Map of the Heavens" in gold. "It'd be great if this book gave us some kind of clue," she said. And, as her hand flipped the cover open, she gasped. Sasuke peered at the page from over her shoulder. "Sai." He unexpectedly whispered the name of his village comrade, but this was a natural leap for his mind to make. The page held an ink painting in black. Drawn in flowing brushstrokes was a tanuki parent and child frolicking on a dune. Sakura brought the page to her nose and caught the scent of charred oil mixed in with the grassy smell of glue. She'd smelled this any number of times when she was assigned to missions with Sai. The painting had been done with ink made of soot and thinned with water, the very same painting style as that handed down in the Land of Fire. But as far as she or Sasuke knew, this style of painting using ink did not exist in the land of Ridaku. Then the book was made outside of this country? Sasuke frowned. It's also possible that someone from abroad came here and painted it. An outsider who came to the land of Ridaku and stayed here a long, long time ago, Sakura mused. The same person popped into both of their heads. The Sage of Six Paths. One hypothesis was that he had painted this picture while he was visiting this land. Ink drawing techniques reached other countries after that, including the Land of Fire, and were still in use right up to the present day. but they had gradually died out in the land of Ritaku. Accounting for the fact that this observatory had sat forgotten for many years, it was certainly a plausible hypothesis. The very first page was an ink painting of Tanuki playing on a dune. On the next page, a giant. On the page after that, a watchfire, after that, a cat, and then a monkey, cow, elderly person, and shepherd. "They're the same as the Starline's cards," Sasuke murmured as he checked the last page. Tanuki parent and child playing on the dune. Giant being born from the earth. Orange watchfire. Cat staring at a lantern flame. Monkey drawing on the ground with a tree branch. Cow peering into a pot. Elderly person with white hair and a cane. Shepherd looking up at the night sky through a glass bead. Turtle climbing a rocky mountain. White horse swimming in the ocean. Frog and slug crawling through the bog. Tree trunk with sap oozing down the side. The images in the 12-ink drawings were indeed a perfect match for those on the Starline's picture cards. I don't get it. How are these paintings connected with the location of the ultra particles? Sakura traced the ink-stained pages, and then her hand stopped abruptly. When she looked closely, she could see small dots scattered about on each of the paintings, as though drawn with the tip of a brush. And the images of the tanuki and turtle and others looked as though they had been drawn over these dots to connect them with lines. "These aren't ordinary ink paintings," she said in a flash of insight. "They're constellations." "Constellations?" Sasuke parroted. "Diagrams of plants or animals using the arrangement of stars in the sky. You know, we have them in the land of fire too, Taurus, Aries, all of those." "You were born on July 23rd, so you're a Leo," Sakura explained as she turned to the page with the drawing of the slug. 5 small dots were arranged in a zigzag along the tips of the antenna on the slug's head. "Look, these 5 dots. It's the exact same arrangement as the Dipper." The Dipper was the name for a line of 5 stars that could be seen from spring through summer. The distinctive meandering formation seemed to match up with the dots on this painting. "I get it." Sasuke nodded. "The Dipper's in the sky from the end of spring into the summer. So then, is this slug a constellation to express that period?" "There are exactly 12 paintings, so maybe each one depicts the constellation that hangs in the moonlit sky in the months from January to December," Sakura said. "We might find a clue if we change the order of the constellations." "Change the order?" He frowned. "That'll take some time." The land of Ridaku was quite far from the land of fire. The way the stars looked in the night sky was undoubtedly quite different here than it was back home. "Oh, it'll be fine," Sakura told him lightly and looked around at the documents piled up in the room. "There are plenty of astronomical records stored here. Give me a couple days, and I think I can figure out the order of the paintings by comparing them with past observations. Rearrange them by months. I can always count on you." Sasuke was sincere in his admiration of her abilities. He flipped through the map of the heavens on the viewing table. He was sure that Sakura would be able to identify the time period for each painting in the order they should be in. But there was something about the lineup of animals selected that bothered him somehow. Giant. Tanuki. Cat. Monkey. Cow. Turtle. White horse. Frog and slug. And the shepherd and old person. Tree trunk and watchfire. He felt like he'd seen this arrangement before. Not on the Starline's picture cards. Further back in time, somewhere. Like he'd seen an old person, cat, turtle, and monkey all together. "Sasuke, what's wrong?" Sakura looked up at him. "Oh." He was about to close the book when he noticed something wedged into the spine. It was a piece of straw paper folded in 4 with a short text scrawled on it in cursive style. X month X day the stars increased. An incomprehensible note. But what caught both Sasuke's and Sakura's eyes was not the text, but the figure drawn below it. It was an all-too-familiar hieroglyph. Any shinobi in the village of Konohagakure who'd been recognized as an adult wore this symbol on their person, and in the most conspicuous place on their entire body. At the academy, they'd learned that this glyph came from a shinobi placing a tree leaf on their head and training to focus their energy. The symbol of Konohagakure, combining a fallen leaf and a whirlpool. Why? What is the mark of Konoha doing here? The two of them looked at each other, at a loss for words. They had discovered the glyph of their village in a faraway observatory, inside an astronomical text written in the distant past. The words "the stars increased," the Konoha mark, and the observatory. Neither Sasuke nor Sakura were able to find anything to connect these three truly disparate elements. The next morning, Sakura pressed a scrap of paper into Sasuke's hand as she passed him in the hallway while he was on his way to the cafeteria. When he went to a spot where no one was around and opened it, he saw the constellations from the previous day rearranged by month. It seemed that Sakura had identified the observation period for each one in a single night. January, tanuki parent and child playing on a dune. February, cat staring at a lantern flame. March, turtle climbing a rocky mountain. April, monkey drawing on the ground with a tree branch. May, white horse swimming in the ocean. June, frog and slug crawling through the bog. July, tree trunk with sap oozing down the side. August, cow peering into a pot. September, orange watchfire. October, giant being born from the earth. November, shepherd looking up at the night sky through a glass bead. December, elderly person with white hair and a cane. The animals were concentrated from January to August. September was the watchfire flames. October, the giant. And November and December were people. Shepherd and old person. On the back of the note was a quick, scribbled message. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Library. End of chapter 3. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.